We have got a star-studded lineup of guests here at the THSCA Leadership Summit 2025 because there's just stars all over the place from hither and from yon. And one of the guys that I think that we're going to kick things off with is a guy we would describe from being from yon. We're pleased to be joined by the head coach of those Midland Legacy Rebels, Coach Clint Hartman. Coach, it's good to see you, my friend.
Very good to see y'all.
Thanks for making the trip, although I understand you had a previous engagement. You were, normally it would be Midland Legacy head coach Clint Hartman, which is enough, and that's a great title. But how about keynote speaker Clint Hartman here at the THSCA Leadership Summit?
Was blessed to get awarded the Coaching Beyond the Game award and got a chance to speak. And anytime we can do anything to promote THSCA or anything we can do, I'm all in. But it was an honor. It's been a 25-plus year deal as a head coach, coaching and being a head coach for 18. And my wife's the real stud that's in this deal. So
I guess we'll do that.
She drove us here, thank God. So,
wow, really?
Yep.
Okay, well, that's,
get home safe.
Smart. So can you tell us a little bit about, I know you went for approximately 30 minutes, which you hit the under for me. I thought you might still be talking, honestly. But can you give us kind of what was your message when you got up there in front of what is a really big crowd here at the esports arena?
My message was, in today's age, if you knew what your words meant, how much would you put into them or you thought. So I shared some coaches that coached me beyond the game. And I started with an English teacher where I was, it was old school. We were reading, and so I counted, and I was reading my paragraph because I knew I was going to be on the 8th one. And then right before, somebody had a short paragraph, so she said, read that one. And I was a kid that was yes or no, sir, fake it till you make it. And before, nobody really knew about dyslexia. And so she said, you're going to, Clint, you're reading. I said, no, I'm not. And she goes, yeah, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. And so she held me afterwards. She said, why don't you want to? I said, well, the words jump. I don't read very well. I don't want to make fun of me. And so she got help. She found it, and that helped me more than she knew. Costa Fuente, my defense coordinator in high school, one day he was taking me home when I was a sophomore and said, hey, I think you'd be a good coach. And, I don't think he knew that. I said, well, what's that mean? And he goes, well, it means you got to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And so I started researching it, and my parents drove a diesel. My parents sold freight on a diesel. My brothers that's what everybody did. And so I never really had thought about going to college and doing that. So that, and then Coach Morgan comes in, and of course he's my new coach in his senior year, and you think, well, they ain't going to play the seniors, that's what everybody thinks as a kid. They want to win too. But he starts talking to me about being a leader, and he starts talking to me, and he finds out we're kind of on hard times, and I got some holes in my shoes, and he buys me a pair of Rydell cleats, not Jordans, but some Rydell cleats, right? But my feet didn't hurt. So he had a hook in my mouth, and I was in. And then Coach Keenum helped me through when I had cancer in high school and college, and kept me in school at Sul Ross. And then later on, I ended up transferring, playing in Hardin Simmons with Jimmy Keelan. And he really taught me about being a man and loving people. And then he said, I won't accept you for the man you are today, only the man you can become. And a lot of those lessons have come through. And so then I kind of tied it up with the lesson that, you coach for a while, and I've had tons of these lessons. But there's a young man named Desmond Jackson, and I talked to him last week and said, and I cried and told him what I was going to say. And so Desmond, when I went to Seguin, they hadn't been very good. I was a defensive coordinator. We were their fourth staff in 4 years. And so I went to the middle schools, and I saw these good players, and those kids, everybody in the environment and the coaches were negative. And those kids won't make it. They'll get kicked off, blah, 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 blah. And I started going, well, why? Why can't we save these guys? And so I gave him stuff to do. He'd gotten a little trouble. It's not bad trouble. I had to suspend him for some games and things like that. And all of a sudden, I told you he was already 365, but he started staying at our house a lot, me and my wife. And he's so gentle with my two babies, my older one who now coaches, Madison and then Cody, and he could rock them to sleep. And I saw this gentle kid, and then I saw on the field he's always mad. And so one day we have OU there and Texas there, and he hits this kid and knocks him out. And I'm so mad at him. And I I kick him out of practice, and I get him in the car, and I got to take him home. He's staying with us anyway. And I said, why do you do that? Why? And he goes, I don't think sometimes as a coach we think about the why the kid. He says, Coach, OU and Texas was there. I said, I know they were there. I told you they were going to be there. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, I want to play there. and I want them to remember it. Coach, it's my only way out. So I think if we'll take back, and we tell them in 2 chairs at our school. First chair on the field, that's black and white. We're going to do it this way. Off the field, I think the worst way you can treat a kid is all the same, okay? Because they all tick differently. I mean, what makes Clint Hartman tick, it's going to may not the next one tick. But you got to spend time, and so we have some things that we do to get to know them, and then we can get to know what makes that kid tick and what turns that kid off. But for me, the biggest thing is, and that's kind of tied it up quickly as I can, but at the end, I talked about how amazing the THSCA went towards female leadership in LaQuisha Dickerson and Amanda Wolfstram, and my wife's been a coach for, which now that light for Madison to be a board member, and those things are there, okay? And then like a girl like Madison Kaler, who spoke at the regional meeting, she was in the gym at Seguin High School when we were coaching basketball. We never knew. So my whole deal was, I don't think it's a sin to try to save a kid and lose them. I think it's a sin to never try. Mm-hmm. And so those guys, I don't think they knew, but the coolest thing was me calling them and saying, Coach, I'm going to speak about you at this clinic, and they cried and I cried. But I think all of us in life, we've all had those moments where you're going down this road and it puts you back on the right path. And I thank Coach LaFuente and Coach Morgan and Coach Keenum and Coach Keelan and my right-hand guy, Coach Maldonado, who helped me through dyslexia as I got older and told me he was a smart guy. And one day I'm trying to read he shows up early and I'm reading an English book. I mean, who's doing that, right? And he goes, what are you doing? And I said, man, if I'm be a head coach, I'm going to have to be able to type and send out stuff. And he goes, Clint, talk. He goes, write like you talk. He goes, you're intelligent. Stop trying to overthink this thing. But he was a guy that I trusted, and so I know he didn't think that was going to mean nothing that day, but it sure did. I think I got more stories like that, but the big thing is we're going to get beat down a little bit. Every parent that ever has a meeting, it's always been about playing time. They can always say it's not about playing time. It always comes back to playing time. But we got people getting out of this profession because of that, and I think that's a travesty because, as the guy after me spoke about, Twin Thieves, he was really good, and like the bottom 10% that are always negative, they're going to go away. Mm-hmm. They're going to give in eventually. So I'm going to concentrate them other 90.
What I think is so fascinating about events like this, like the THSCA Leadership Summit, is, it's clinic season, right? There's a lot of coaches going around these clinics, and you can go to a clinic and you can learn about blitz packages out of the 3-3-5 stack, right? And you can go out there and be like, hey, this is how you run a hurry-up offense here in the 2-minute drill. And here, the Leadership Summit is focusing on what a lot of coaching is, which is like 2% of your job is calling plays, right? Maybe 2%? Maybe. You know what I mean? Maybe. But this is focusing on that other 98%. And I talk about this with folks all the time. It's like, when you're a head football coach, like, your job is so little about what's actually happening on Friday night and what's happening on the other, whatever the amount of hours in a week, minus the 3 hours that the game is happening on a Friday night. And that's, I think, what's happening out there in the arena there, and with these speakers like yourself, like Steve Jones, who did a fantastic job, like Stephen Mack, who's coming up here on the show a little bit later. And that's what I think is fascinating about an event like this, is that where there's other places you can go, and they're great events where you can cultivate those X's and O's. And here we're cultivating that other 98% of the job. I
think you said something that I always talk about. I've had well over 20, 30 people come visit us to talk football, and they always ask about plays. And they always ask about this and that, and they never ask about character development, how much we take care of them. We've been blessed this year we have a 16-minute character development time with all our kids right before athletics, and we use it every day. And, treat women with respect, all kind of things that we use, right? But I think what you just said, most parents on Friday night think about the game as they buy their ticket, okay? And there's been 90 hours of preparation before you get to that game. And people always say, just call plays, baby. And that's what people think it's about. And my mother, God rest her soul, she used to be the same one out there going, run the ball. And what play you want me to run? Who do you want me running at, right? But we'd run it, and she goes, why don't you run the ball more? I told you, and they got some guys up there. We didn't think we could move, Mom. But that's the majority of people. I think if there's anything I could press upon parents, or that really and truly, when there's an old proverb, when the elephants, fight, the grass gets trampled. With the kids, the grass. The parents and the coaches, the elephants. And I think if I could ever press upon people, it's not personal. They always think it's personal. It's never personal. None of us take a job to hurt kids or any of that kind of stuff. But it can be very, very detrimental to the relationship between you and that kid, and then you can't get them to do things, and then that's going to affect playing time. That's going to happen. But for these things, like you said, I think this is an amazing time. We're tired. Spring break's almost here, and sometimes you need a little juice to get going. I know I've come to it all the time. I've had a lot of awards in my life, but that coaching beyond the game, that with Grant Taft, and I remember watching the first time and I saw Glenn West and the head coach Terrell get it, and I was thinking, well, that'd be pretty cool to get, right? But I tell you, it doesn't happen without Ginger Hartman. I mean, she's been a part of everything, and then Frank Maldonado's been with me for 23 years. Just got the Broyles Award as a top assistant in the state of Texas. So we had a lot of support and help around us, but this thing is really good for that type of stuff. And I think guys that you look at that are perennial powers are here. There's a reason they're here.
Midland Legacy head coach Clint Hartman joined us here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #T of the day. All right, Coach, let's talk a little bit of ball. Midland Legacy is one of the few programs in the state that I never have to look up your score on a Friday night because I know whether you won or lost, because it's a binary system for me. I will either get a text or I won't. If I don't get a text, things didn't go well for the Rebs.
Didn't go well for the Rebs.
But if I do get a text, I know things went well for the Rebs, and the text always says the same thing. Rebs are back, baby.
Yeah.
So on a scale of not back to back, how back are the Rebs right now?
We've been the one 6A program out there that's played in the third round, I think 4 times in the last 5 years or 6 years, and it's like Groundhog Day. You play Euless Trinity, you play Lamar, you play South Lake. It's kind of that deal. And we've in Allen, and we had them down, and they came back and beat us. People always talk about can it ever happen out there? I firmly believe it can. I have no problem saying that, and that's our goal, to win the state championship. Now, there's a lot of things got to happen, but also I think people think that it's easy. They go, well, it's easy, to go get past the third round and that kind of stuff. Well, none of it's easy. Getting past the first round ain't easy, But I think that we have a really good group coming back. We were pretty young. We had some injuries and that kind of stuff. And for me, I never make excuses. I'm not very happy. We won 6 district titles in a row, and then last year we took second. So I'm still not happy. And we're having a great off season. But what's not going to happen is we're not going to get out coached, and we're not going to get out worked. We're not going to get out toughed. We're not going to do those things. Now we got to get some breaks and all that kind of stuff and stay healthy. Everybody has to do that stuff. But I think that we've been back. I think it's hard to have sustained success, which we've had, and people have now, as kids have starting to play for us, they forgot when I got there they were 1-9, 3-7 in previous 2 years before I got there. And kids start thinking, well, this just happens sometimes, and you got to re-up them. Like Nick Saban said, sometimes you got to lose. I mean, I think this is a big. I think we're pretty hungry right now and pretty not happy. It's like me, and I think your teams take on your persona and that kind of stuff.
When you take a look at this 2025 team, because now you're getting beaten down by people for questionnaires.
Yep.
Who could that be?
Who could that be? When you what has you fired up? What has you excited about this 2025 group? What about this group?
These seniors have always been successful in the 7th and 8th grade. They either lost to the other middle school or not. They didn't lose a track meet, and there's a whole lot of talent in it. But what makes me more fired up about it is that I've had really good teams there, okay? And the teams have been really good to love each other, and this team loves each other. It's a little different, and people don't really take that into account. You just look at X's and O's and players and stuff like that. But like Nick Moore is I think one of the best DBs in the state of Texas, and he's never said that. I'll say that because I've coached him for a living. He's a great receiver. Then we moved to DB because we had to in the middle of the year, and he said, yes, sir. And right before we played Lake Travis, and I said, only thing I can tell you guys, I don't know if he'll tackle. And I remember the first play of the game, they ran the ball, and he knocked running back, and I said, oh, he'll tackle now. Great player. I think we have a lot of them. Dylan Ramish. Our offensive line as a whole is really good. We have a sophomore quarterback who will be a junior who we had to thrust into it because of injuries. And he set the record for the all-time passing record in a single game in admittedly in Legacy history. And then secondary-wise, I think it's the most talented secondary we've had since I've been there, where we can play some man-to-man and not always have to play zone and come after you a little bit. And then I think that as a group we have a really good staff. I think there's 7 or 8 guys that have been coordinators and head coaches on it, and we've been together for a long time. But I'm fired up, and you better be, because we play Allen, in our first 7 games. 6 out of the first 7 games were on the road, and so we play Allen in Dallas, we play Euless Trinity in Dallas, and we play Lake Travis in Austin, and then in Lake Travis, and then we play Abilene High at home, thank God, and then we go play Ruston, Louisiana in Dallas, and then we play San Angelo on the road, and we play Friendship on the road.
So you're easing into this.
Light schedule.
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of going in. So, and then final question for you, because I know there's other people out there more interesting to listen to than me.
Agree.
You've been a head coach here since 2016. From your perspective, what is the biggest difference in this program from the program you took over, which you mentioned, coming off of 1-9 and 4-6, to now is, you got to deal with the Rebs every single year. It may not go, 11, 12 wins, but you got to deal with the Rebs every year. What is that biggest difference between that team, that program you took over and the program as it exists now?
I think there's a mixture of the old and new. I think the basis of our off season is old school. They were doing it in 1980, pulling tires, overhead ladders, which is a big word for monkey bars. We say that's for insurance purposes, I guess. I learned that in 2001 when I visited Coach Parchman, and we took that, and it worked for me. And I remember when he called me and said, "Hey, Clint, do you want to get involved in this mess we have?" And I said, well, what's wrong with it? And I remember saying that. And he said, they can be pushed, Clint. They're tough. I don't think nothing's wrong with it. I think they need to go back to some old school things, and didn't give me much other than that. And I think from where we were then to where we are now is our kids believe they can win. They believe they can, you got to teach them that first, and now when we win, we're not always happy. And when we lose, we're damn sure not happy. But when we win, sometimes it ends with the butt chewing. Because we didn't get the best out of because when you're playing good, you got to still be trying to close the gap between you and the Metroplex. That's just the way it is. Because we're going to have to go through there to do it, right? But I think overall, just belief. I think we have a lot of great support. I think that our staff's been, as a whole, a lot of them together. We lost some head coaches, which you do when you and that's a good thing. Yeah. But long story short, I think that they believe, and I think our X's and O's and our toughness and our offseason, I think it's there's a reason we're winning. I think everybody tries to figure it out, and I don't mind. I remember all the losses. I don't remember very many of the wins, but we didn't have very many of them, and I think that over time we've sustained success, and that's hard to do.
He's Clint Hartman. He's the head coach of the Midland Legacy Rebels, and I can say it. The Rebs are back, baby.
Rebs are back,
Rebs are back. Coach, appreciate your time, my friend.
Thank y'all very much.
Absolutely. Good to see you, my friend. There he goes, Clint Hartman, head coach of the Midland Legacy Rebels. Rebs are back, baby. We are Texas Football Today. We're here Mondays and Thursdays on TexasFootball.com, talking football in the Lone Star State. You can follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at TexasFootball.com.